So did you know that the average server utilization in an enterprise, according to Gartner, is only between 5 and 15%? They also reckon that about 30% of all servers that are turned on and installed in data centers are turned on and then never used. And yet, in financial services, customers are telling us that they're finding it really hard to keep up with the increasing pressures placed on them by regulators, shareholders, and stakeholders. We understand that you're all under increasing pressure to deliver results faster and faster than ever before. And yet, your data is getting bigger. Your model's more complex, the regulatory requirements more stringent and onerous than ever before. YellowDog can help you deliver those results faster than ever before. Our platform can enable you to accelerate those big batch processes fast enough to turn overnight processing into minutes processing, and all without you having to spend an extra penny on additional hardware. So Simon, should we start off a complex asset management process?
We're logged in here into the YellowDog portal, and what you can see on the right here is my history, my job history of jobs that I've run. And what I'm going to do here is, for the purposes of demo, run an example job. Now, normally all of this is automated, but in order to understand how this works, I've actually broken it down, and I'm going to kick off by defining my requirements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off a interest rate sensitivity job, a standard job, and we're going to run that under YellowDog. So I'm going to define my requirements, and what I'm going to say is, in this case, I want to be able to run my job on-premise. So I want to be able to select the servers that are available within my organization to be able to run this job. So I'm going to define that. I'm also going to say what I want this to run on Windows compute, and I'm going to set a deadline of 5 minutes, so 0 hours, and 0 seconds, and 5 minutes in order to get this job done and completed. What that's done now, in the bottom here, you can see the servers that are made available to me. So I'm going to start my job, and I'm going to add my on-premise servers and make them available for this job to run this batch process. So that's now been kicked off. Now what we actually have is something called a YellowDog agent that runs on the on-premise compute, and it makes use of the underutilized compute. So the agent itself is able to detect when there's no activity or the machines themselves are underutilized, and is able to actually then harness that underutilized compute and make it available to batch processors when it wouldn't normally be available. We also are able to integrate with existing schedulers, grid engines, and resource managers as well. And we complement with them, really to be able to make use of that underutilized compute, and also to allow the same processes to be burst outside of the organization if that's required as well.
So as Simon said, YellowDog, our unique technology can securely harness the underutilized computer power that already exists within your organization. And then we can And if that isn't enough for the jobs at hand, YellowDog can be configured by you to securely burst those workloads out to the cloud providers you select, public or private. And as Simon suggested, best of all, we're able to forward predict exactly how long these jobs are going to take and also the likelihood of failure even before they begin. We are also more flexible than virtualization, more resilient than high-performance computing clusters. We are less expensive to deploy than hyperconvergence, and we're naturally vendor agnostic. Now, Simon, should we show YellowDog being configured to burst out to multiple public cloud providers? So you may have stress tests that run every night that need to be finished before the markets open. Imagine if they never ran late and your traders were never left waiting ever again. You may have teams all over the world that need access to information 24/7. Imagine if your teams in New York had up-to-date, up-to-minute information minutes after London closed. You may have complex risk and financial models that you use to make decisions about tactics and strategies for days and months ahead. Imagine that rather than running 15 scenarios, you could run 50, 500 scenarios. Imagine the improvements in performance you could make. And all this can be delivered without you having to spend tens of thousands of pounds on extra hardware or millions on extra data centers. And as well as tens of millions of pounds you no longer need to spend on hardware you no longer need, the reduction in risk, the improvements in performance create a compelling business case. In fact, the year one benefit for one global bank has been calculated at $90 million. But don't take my word for it. It's my pleasure to introduce on stage Jago Westmacott, CTO from Fulcrum Asset Management. Welcome, Jago. Hey.
Thank you.
So Jago, can you tell me, as your business changes and grows, what are your needs for the cloud?
Well, we run systems both on-premise and currently in AWS. We spin up thousands of machines on demand for backtesting, but we also have a need to run systems in different locations for disaster recovery purposes. So we have a need or requirement for a lot of secure compute over different public clouds.
Okay, great. So a need for processing in many locations, thousands of computers. What was it about YellowDog that you felt met your needs?
For us, the great advantage was a single normalized API. We just don't have to worry about the integration with different cloud providers. We deal with your API, and we can carry on with our core businesses.
Cool, a single API, easy. So tell me about your future. How do you see your business and technology developing?
We're going to keep on leveraging the functionality and the scalability that you guys provide, but we're going to be focusing mainly on our core business and leave cloud integrations YellowDog.
Cool, thank you, Jay. So over the past 3 years, we've built a world-class team here at YellowDog. Jamie, our head of sales, has worked in places like Earnix, MoneyHub, and Brightside, where he's been helping the world's largest banks and insurance companies solve the most complex problems with the latest technologies. Simon has worked in company, has been chief architect and chief technology officer in not in Earnix, that was Jamie, in SunGuard, Flexion, and Cloud Direct. He's filed over 30 patents, 9 of which have been granted. And I love building products that solve real problems. And I've done that in Orange, to Experian QoS, and to Ariso, where we were a trusted provider of the world's largest telcos. For the past 3.5 years, we've been disrupting the media and entertainment industry, helping their artists to do more, to create more, to deliver against seemingly impossible deadlines. Today, animation studios and visual effects facilities all over the world rely on YellowDog to help them process business-critical, highly valuable, and sensitive data. We take this data, securely transfer it to our platform, segment it, and then send it to hundreds of thousands of calls to process it faster than ever before. These companies are global. They follow the sun, and yet they're constantly having to do more with fewer resources and in less time. And yet the amount of data they're needing to process is always getting bigger. Does that sound familiar? So if you've ever experienced your stakeholders asking you for information you simply cannot give them quickly enough, if you'd like your people to do more, to create more, to innovate more, to be unleashed from limited computing power, then come and find us afterwards. All we'll need is one session to scope out a small, low-risk proof of concept that could end up saving you millions. Thank you.